actually...
Drum roll, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take all of you back in time to the year 1803, the year the United States of America bought the Louisiana Territory, and also in 1804 when Lewis and Clark sent on a dangerous expedition. Now let's start with the purchase of the Louisiana Territory. It all started when Napoleon Bonaparte convinced Spain to return the Louisiana Territory to France. They wanted to settle the territory with thousands of French farmers. They would grow food for slaves in the Caribbean who grew sugarcane for the French to sell. That concerned many American farmers. The farmers harvested their crops and then sent them to the Mississippi River to float them down to the port of New Orleans. That's why they were worried that the French would close the port of New Orleans to the Americans, because they used the town to transport their crops to Europe and the eastern states. Thomas Jefferson understood the concerns of the farmers. In 1803, he sent James Monroe to France with an offer to buy New Orleans for $7.5 million. Napoleon's idea was lost between the Haiti slaves revolt and his war declaration with Britain, so the Louisiana Territory was too much for him to handle. So sold it to the United States for $15 million. What a steal.
Now let's talk about the famous Lewis and Clark expedition. Thomas Jefferson was planning an expedition of the Louisiana Purchase. For that important mission, he chose a young officer by the name of Captain Meriwether Lewis. Lewis then chose his old friend, William Clark, who was a skilled map maker and leader. To join him, Clark had to select and oversee a volunteer force. Clark also had a slave that he took with him on the expedition. After the ceremony, they would leave out in the summer of 1803, and by the winter they had reached St. Louis, which was located on the western bank of the Mississippi River, and settled there for the rest of the winter. They were very smart to bring what they called thunderclappers, which were more or less laxatives. Because they ate mostly meat, their pipes would back up, meaning that they would become constipated. Thunderclappers definitely helped their dilemma. In North Dakota, they met a 16-year-old girl named Sakagaway. Her husband and their infant son would join the expedition. As a girl, Sakagaway was kidnapped for her people by another Indian group. Lewis and Clark hoped that she would translate when they got to the Shoshone country. Zebulon Pike also had his own expedition. Zebulon Pike set out at the age of 26. He found a mountain which later would be called Pike's Peak. Later on in his expedition, he found a trail which would later be called the Santa Fe Trail. Pike called the West the American Desert. There were also the mountain men who explored the West. At first, they went west to get beaver furs, but while doing it, they found some trails that were easier to travel through than going through the mountains. Now, wasn't that fun? That was our project on the Louisiana Territory. Hope you enjoyed it.
By Randy, Anthony, Tyler, and me.